You know, good morning everybody. I hope this video finds you well. Today I want to talk about protesting in China. You know, it never fails. There's this massive long litany of things that the Westerners, Americans or whatever, can just use and throw at you saying, well, food is good in China, but the air is polluted. Well, okay, the air isn't polluted. Well, what about the debit trap? Well, there isn't a debit trap. Okay, well, what about this? And then what about that? And then what about this? And one of those things that they like to throw in your face is say, you don't have the freedom to protest. Well, they're obviously living under a rock. People do protest in China. If you've spent any time in China, you'll know that. But obviously, these people are morons, and they don't know this. But what I do want to talk about here is protesting in America, reality, versus protesting in America as the great democracy. Let's face it, people. If you're working in America and you take time off to protest, you will be fucking fired. And you'll say, well, I have my rights. And you will go to court and you'll say, he fired me unjustly. And the court will throw it out because you signed a document saying that you will abide by the terms of your employer. That's called the harsh slap of reality. And so in this video, I want to talk about the harsh slap of reality. Most people in America don't protest. They don't like things, but they really don't protest. If you look at the people who are protesting, they're either retired, unemployed, or students. Because if they had a job, they'd be fucking fired. That's reality. That's reality number one. But that's all fine and good, but the real reality of the United States is if the United States democracy actually worked, you wouldn't need to protest. You wouldn't. Because you would go to your representative who represents your needs and concerns, and they would take care of everything. And if you are an American, you have 2 representatives and 2 senators that you can go to. That's 4 people. You've got your state representative and your state senator, and your federal representative and your federal senator. It's 4 people. So if you go to those 4 people and nothing gets done, which usually doesn't because they only do work for the people who pay them on the side in big amounts of money, or do things that are easy for them to tweak and fix quickly. Then you have the last resort, which is protesting. That's just reality. So in America, you have 2 systems. You have the formal system that's completely broke, which is you go through your representative. And the backup system, which is very ineffective. It just hasn't worked for decades, which is you protest. You block roads, you cause havoc, you interrupt public services, you make people's lives miserable. Okay? You've probably seen this kind of stuff in the West, people throwing paint on paintings in art museums, or throwing paint on people who are wearing furs, or people who tear down farm fences for people who are raising cattle or pigs or chickens. Yeah, protests. Seems to me, in the West, in the United States, it's very, very dysfunctional. The primary systems are absolutely collapsed. They don't work. You don't go to a congressman and he doesn't fix your problem. So it's broken. He makes a lot of money, pretending he's doing stuff, but it's completely broken. So that system's dead. And then you have your fallback system where you get a sign and you protest and you burn things. That system is also broken. And if you do it and you're working, you will violate your contract, you will lose your job. If you hurt somebody, you will be arrested, and then you will also have a prison record and you won't be able to get a new job. So both systems are fucked up. That's the West. It's designed that way. It's designed to keep you as complacent cattle. So I'm very, very, I get a big chuckle when somebody says, well, there's no democracy in China. Well, China is a real democracy, you know. Now, in China, let's talk about China here. China is a democracy. If you are unhappy with something, you go through your local representative. They have an app for that. Yeah, they have an app. Those who participate in society go get the app. Those that don't get the app. So the way China works is, if you want to be part of the government and make change, it comes with you doing stuff. You have to volunteer your time. You got to be a crossing street guard for little kids. You got to volunteer your time to pick up litter on the street. You have to volunteer your time when things are tough. You have to volunteer. And if you volunteer, you get the app. If you've never donned on one of those pink or red or orange vests, you don't fucking qualify. See, in China, you have two kinds of people. You have civilians and you have citizens. People who sit around complaining and doing nothing, they just work or whatever, are civilians. Citizens take their money, their time, their efforts, their emotions, and volunteer to make the nation a better place. And they are the ones that have the voice to make change. That's the way the system works. But what if you are not a citizen? What if you didn't do a lick of work? You didn't volunteer. You didn't pick up any trash. You didn't help people. You didn't do anything. All you did is you went to school, you got yourself a job, and now there's a big hole in the road in front of your house, and you don't have the app to communicate. What do you do? Well, you go to the second tier. You talk to the local communist representative, the local citizen representative in your area. Every housing complex, every block has them. They're everywhere. And you talk to them and you say, look, this is a mess, this is a problem, I need to fix it. I don't have the app on my phone, but you have it on your phone. Can I please use your app? And then you will work with that person, which is usually an older woman, an IE, we call them an auntie, and they will get the ball moving. Now, in both cases, if there's an app that you have, or if you're working with a communist local party representative and you want to get something done, you're the one who lodged the complaint, right? So you're the one that's going to be doing a lot of the work. They'll assign a project manager. They will establish goals and objectives, and you are going to have to do a lot of the footwork. So let's suppose you have a big hole on the road right in front of your house and you want to get it fixed. So you've got a timeline of getting it fixed, you've got phone numbers, you've got resources, and you will start walking to people, making the arrangements to have somebody come on over there, deliver some stuff and fix it, and those people fix it, and that people do it, and so other people put up signs and put up roadblocks, and it gets done. And you, my friend, will be there while it's being done. You may be holding a flag, but you will be putting on a vest, and you will be volunteering to fix that goddamn fucking hole. Because that's the way China works. They don't sit around talk. They sit around and do. And that's China for you. Of course, let's suppose that you have a fighting match with the local IE, the local representative in your block, and you're not on talking terms. So how are you going to get anything done? You're not a civilian, you're not a citizen because you don't have the app. You're not on talking terms with the person who does have the app. What do? Well, you go to the block next over and you say, I'm not on speaking terms, and you go to them and they have the app. But what happens if, for whatever reason, it's roadblock after roadblock after roadblock? Then you can protest. You can put up signs, you can make banners. It happens, I've seen it. There was a bank in Shenzhen a couple years back that closed its doors and didn't pay its employees. And all the employees went through everything. This was before they had an app. And they just says, I'm just going to protest. And so they just stood in front of the bank with signs. And they did this for a couple of days. The signs themselves caused the local communist representatives, because everybody has local communist representatives, to be called on the carpet. For those of you who don't know, being called on the carpet means you have to report to your higher up, and they're asking you what the fuck is going on and why aren't you taking care of it. You see, in China, if you are in the party, if you're in the Communist Party, if you're part of the government, you have a responsibility to be doing things. It's like it is in Boston, actually. For those of you who think American participation in governance is dead, I got a story for you, because I have never been so proud of America in my life. Seriously. But let me finish this story here about China. Then we're going to talk about the things that made me feel proud as an American. Okay, so anyways, but they're called on the carpet. And if they do not produce and do not resolve these issues, bad things happen to them. You see, citizens are held at a much higher standard than civilians. If you fuck up as a member of the Communist Party, your punishment is far worse than it would be for this guy over here. So China does not play, and since Xi Jinping came in there with a corruption police, the punishments got even worse. You don't want bad stuff to happen to you. All right. So that's the thing here about some of the way the systems work. They're a little bit different. But let me tell you about Boston. This was back in the 1990s. Of course, I'm living in Boston. Actually, I'm living in Milford, Massachusetts. Or was it Framingham? I was living in both places. Could be Rentham. It doesn't matter. I was living in that general area, and I would take the Amtrak, the train, to go to South Station. I would pick it up in Framingham. Franklin. Pick it up in Franklin, and then I'd go to the South Station, and then get on the subway. And they're one of the, I would ride in the car, there's all kinds of people that ride in the car, but usually, these morning commutes, there's a bunch of people sitting down there, and at that time we had newspapers, and you were reading the newspaper, and just relaxing, and there was a steward on the train, a conductor, that was very, very rude to a woman passenger, and one of the guys got up out of the train, and he fucking berated that person, berated that conductor. Well, it turns out that he was a state representative in charge of that area. And when he went back to his office, he made sure that conductor was fired, and a whole hell broke loose on the Amtrak. So I'm very, very proud that he took his role very seriously. He got to the issue at hand, and that made me feel really proud of Boston and made me feel very, very proud of America. But do we have to have our representatives sit there personally experiencing this stuff for anything to get done? I think that all societies doesn't matter how perfect it is or imperfect it is, will have issues having to do with government or government services, whether it's a post office, whether it's the telephone, whether it's utilities, whether it's the road, whether it's building codes, whether it's corruption. You'll have problems and you need to address them. Doesn't matter which country you're in, all have these issues, all need a system to address them. The idea boggles my mind, actually, that China doesn't have these systems is just total moronic. Really, guys. Seriously, you should really be pounding your head to actually believe the anti-China nonsense that says China has no systems to address and redress grievances. Of course it does. All nations do. Every single one of them does. The question is, how functional are they? Do they actually work? I've showed you videos what China looks like. Obviously something's working. China is a merit-driven society based on STEM, science, technology, engineering, manufacturing, not banking and finance folk. All right? Tangible results come from these people, not numbers on a spreadsheet and feel-good legislation. So that's the big difference between China and the United States. And if you believe the nonsense that says China has no systems, or that it's totally broken, and the Chinese Communist Party is corrupt, and they're an isolated little group, you're just projecting America onto China. You're just projecting America onto China. And you shouldn't. Okay, let me conclude this with some basic points here. Point number 1, all nations have ways of addressing grievances. Australia does, UK does, France does, Finland does, Russia does, and China does. Number 2, it's a propaganda onslaught to believe that it doesn't. To believe that any nation doesn't have these systems. It's propaganda. The real issue is point number 3, the functionality. The American system is completely corrupted and broken. If you have a pothole in front of your house like Al Bundy did in the television sitcom Married with Children, nothing gets done. But if you have it in China, there's major systems that will implement change. Believe me, it happens within hours. It's not a coincidence that entire 3,000-bed hospitals built in 10 days by volunteers who volunteered their time, their money, their services, their equipment, the building materials, all donated. This is never talked about because it makes America look really fucking shitty, as it should. I am convinced that the reason why, there's 2 reasons why America has an anti-China campaign. First reason is prep for a war. Get all Americans all hyped up hating China and then lash at China. That's the first thing. The second reason is China makes America look like a bunch of dunderhead idiots who can't do anything right. It really does, and you've got to keep the American people protected from this realization. And that's my opinion. And for those of you who don't like my opinion, fine. Come to China, check it out for yourself. Just remember, people, you got to really think the idea that China, of all places, a 1.4 to 1.6 billion people, which is 5 times the population of the United States, doesn't have systems to address problems is mind-bogglingly stupid. And if you believe it, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should really be ashamed of yourself. All right, that's it. That was my little discourse for today. I hope you enjoyed it. In every way, in any way, please be the best you can be. Be kind to dogs and cats. Share a coffee with a coworker, maybe a lunch. and refrain from saying bad things. If you're saying something or doing something or rushing out an email or a comment that's hurtful, stop. It's better to say nothing than to say something hurtful, because it comes back on you, don't you know? Take care, people. Remember, I believe in you. I really do. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.